right, Evie and I are back, and I am here to talk about something way off topic from what I normally cover on this channel. As you may have guessed by the title and thumbnail, I am here to talk about something I am passionate about, which is my hatred for Facebook and how they are handling the concept of the metaverse and how they are trying to essentially take it over and build their own version of it from scratch as sort of the forefront of the next generation of the internet. Yesterday, there was a big presentation from Mark Zuckerberg where he detailed his version for the metaverse, and then he ended it with changing the name of Facebook to Meta. I heard that described as kind of a joke that went a little too far, and he's gone way too down the rabbit hole on this. And yet, this whole thing just aggravated me. Evie would... He's knocking her thing over. This whole thing just aggravated me to no end because I have been very, very passionate about the concept of the metaverse from the start. Before I even knew what the metaverse was specifically. Pretty much, the metaverse, to sum up, is a giant virtual space in which people can interact with one another and live sort of unreal lives in a sense. You could be doing basic things like attending a virtual concert, or you could be doing things like playing a game together. The term was popularized in Neil Stephenson's Snow Crash, but it has been expanded to mean all manner of things. And obviously, I think the highest profile version of it has been in Ready Player One, the hit book, which was turned into an actually pretty good movie. And that was sort of a more family-friendly version of it. I really kind of got into the concept of the metaverse back when I was a kid. I remember watching an episode of Batman Beyond where I don't even remember what this villain was called, but he had like a bunch of spirals on his face, and he's kind of like Mysterio, but not really. And he came up with this like virtual reality game, which would like just give people the life they wanted, essentially, where one kid was like a rock star, another girl had like pretty much the same version of her life, only like her family didn't fight, and she was getting really good grades and stuff. And the idea was that these kids would become so addicted to this game that they would, be kind of, it was like a drug. They would be like lying and cheating and stealing to get money to just go in for a little bit longer. And then probably a more common example that everyone can reference is The Matrix, where, there's this entire kind of placebo effect world where reality is this total wasteland dystopia that's taken over by machines, and to kind of placate humanity, everyone is plugged into The Matrix, which is our real life. And I can already tell you he's going to be making a ton of noises during this video, so apologies in advance. I always kind of like, the weird thing is like, I always was like, this Batman Beyond VR system of like a really better life sounds great. I would kind of do that. Or like when Cypher's, eating the steak in The Matrix and saying like ignorance is bliss. Like, I kind of like, yeah, I sort of get his points. I'm not gonna like betray my friends to stay in the Matrix or anything, and yet I really understand the appeal of that. And even though kind of all of the instances of the metaverse are cautionary tales, like I still think there are like some fundamentally good things about it, and it is something like I want to experience and participate in. You can say like, oh, you're contributing to dystopia, but like we all do this with video games already, or even movies or TV shows or books or whatever. Like we get lost in these fantasy worlds because they are more interesting than our own lives. And this is kind of the industry I've chosen for myself. And like, I have a great normal life. I have a corgi, I have a wife, got a kid coming, everything's great. And yet, like, there are some things I will never be able to experience in my life. Traveling the stars, meeting aliens, like, fighting zombies. There's a bazillion things that you just cannot do in real life where, video games have filled that gap. And I can see how in the future, the metaverse could potentially fill that gap. So I have been very kind of invested in this concept, and the more kind of video games especially have evolved, the more I feel like we are working our way slowly towards that, fictionalized vision of this. And my personal example that I always go back to is what Fortnite has done lately, where that's why I chose it behind me. They have assembled this kind of mass, ridiculous collection of IPs, like every superhero you can think of, characters from movies and TV shows and other video games. And my example I always give is like now in Fortnite, you can attend a virtual Ariana Grande concert as Batman, alongside, Rey from Star Wars and Master Chief from Halo. Like, it's just, they are assembling this kind of ridiculous, over the top amalgamation world that it's essentially Ready Player One. They are kind of the company I see pursuing the vision of Ready Player One the most. Up there also is Roblox. They are doing something similar with the virtual worlds, Minecraft to a certain extent, and then just some games in general. Like Destiny has metaverse elements to it in terms of existing in this fictional living world to a certain extent. Maybe not quite in the same level as Fortnite. This is where Facebook comes in and is very annoying because, if I was really into the metaverse, which I am, and I was a billionaire worth $300 billion or whatever he is at this point, maybe I would, sink my company into the metaverse too. And yet, like, Zuckerberg's vision of the metaverse, especially the one he laid out yesterday, like, is so unspeakably lame and, like, pointless and corporate. Like, it is just beyond aggravating to see, like, such a potentially cool concept reduced to pretty much nothing. So the main difference between Zuckerberg's metaverse and all the kind of existing burgeoning ones is he is so hyper focused on VR as a mechanism for this. And it is true that VR is kind of a key component of a lot of the big fictional metaverses out there. Ready Player One, especially Snow Crash, like, it's, you plug into a system and essentially, exist in this world. In those senses, it's more of like a totally immersive experience as opposed to like just a VR headset and hand controls. But Zuckerberg is married to this idea because he owns Oculus and he bought Oculus and they have spent $1 bazillion on VR tech. And he is unable to unlink, the concept of the metaverse from VR. I'm just going to say this. I hate VR. Like, I just hate VR. I am not saying everyone needs to hate VR, but I will say that VR has not experienced mass adoption because I do not think it is all that appealing outside of a niche group of people. I get that there is a small but very hardcore group of people that are really, really into VR and will probably downvote this video if they hear this. But generally speaking, the advent of VR has been coming for a bazillion years now. We've had ancient VR headsets, but like this modern era started, 5 or 6 years ago, kind of when the first Oculuses came out. And I was game for this at first, and I own 2 VR headsets, both of which I regret now. I bought the very first Oculus Rift, the one that has to plug into your mega computer and work that way. And then I used it for a bit, put it down, didn't touch it again. I'm like, well, that wasn't a good purchase. Then I bought an Oculus Quest, the first kind of real mainstream standalone headset. I'm like, okay, well, maybe this is the thing. And it was better. And it came with the hand controls, and it was easier to set up. There weren't any wires. And yet I still used that for about a week and then put it down. And it is currently, I think it's in that cabinet over there in that non-open shelf area. And I have not really touched it in any meaningful capacity. VR has had no real, like, massive breakouts. Like, there are some good VR games, but you have something, like Superhot, you have Beat Saber, and then you have Half-Life Alyx, which is reportedly an extremely, extremely good game that required an extremely, extremely expensive setup to even play. So almost nobody played that outside of the hardest core VR fans. And so, like, you didn't see it on almost any, potential Game of the Year list, even though it is probably, from all reports, Valve's best game they have made in, since probably the original Half-Life or Portal 2 or whatever. So it is just not adopted at the same level. And I think there are very, very clear reasons for this. And, as someone who games for anywhere from 2 to 12 hours a day, the difference between, like, normal gaming and doing things in VR, it's night and day. It doesn't even feel like the same category of thing. Like, I know you are technically playing a game, or you could attend a virtual concert in Fortnite or in VR, but I find VR, I don't get motion sick from VR, I just find it exhausting. Where, like, I cannot really operate for more than like 20 to 40 minutes in VR at a time before I'm just like, okay, like, I don't feel sick, but, like, I'm just kind of like spaced and loopy, and, like, if I'm doing, a really active game, like, cool, I got a workout in, and yet, like, I don't play video games to work out. Like, I don't want to have to manually swing a sword when I could press a button, or manually like be holding a gun and moving all around like when I could just hit a button. Like it doesn't translate. So you have the control scheme, which is just way more intensive than normal video games, and kind of distracts from the reason I play video games in the first place, which is to kind of be sedentary and chill out and not have like this really intensive experience. And then you have the quality of the games, where there are a very, there's a top tier of VR games, and yet it's like a half dozen, and then we have all these other like VR adaptations of this and that and whatever. And most VR games outside of the occasional Half-Life Alyx look like they're from 2 generations ago. Like the tech by necessity has not caught up to where we are. And which is why we see when like we have Zuckerberg's vision of the metaverse, it looks like, the frickin' Sims 1, where like your like Xbox 360 avatars, like, or Xbox One avatars, whenever we had those, or Mii's or something, where it's like just this like ancient, ugly looking thing that does not work. And the best part about Zuckerberg's avatars is that they don't have any legs, because they're rolling out the metaverse. They're changing the company's name to Meta, and they cannot figure out how to have avatars with legs in VR yet. So that does not really bode well for me. The actual substance of what he talked about in like that hour-long presentation, like, is just so boring. It's so lame. Like, I think Horizon is the main world that he has here, and it's just about like, hey, you can have virtual conversations with your friends across the world. Like, you can play like virtual chess with your buddy, like wherever, or like go on a virtual roller coaster. And like demoing this was also very weird, because like we saw what the actual current state of this is, which is this stupid legless avatars. And then we saw stuff that's like kind of like concept footage, where it like shows not legless avatars like walking around and doing things in a virtual world, but like that doesn't exist yet to that extent. Like they can't even get there yet. And then he kept evolving into this weird like ghost thing, where there was like a ghost hollow projection of a girl attending a concert with her friend, which I assume would be like going to a live stream in VR or something, or a guy doing like sitting at a table as a ghost playing like a virtual game of chess with his buddy. And like I don't even know what that is meant to represent in VR. Like, are there 2 people in VR playing chess against each other? Like, is he hollow projecting you onto the chair in front? I have no idea what he's going for here. But like, none of this is interesting, and none of this looks better than anything that exists already. Even like among the hardcore VR people who will push back against me hating VR, all of this stuff like exists, but better and more fun and interesting already. Like VR chat does half of what he's saying already, and you can do a lot more fun, goofy things, like have your giant horny cat avatars and whatever. Like it is not this weird corporate tightly regulated Facebook sub-universe. Like it's more widespread and open, and you can express yourself how you want in weird and wild ways, whereas Facebook is going to be very buttoned down by comparison, obviously. And then you have these other games. You have Roblox, who has bazillions of user created games and stuff you can go to. You have Fortnite, who is doing these has every license deal on the planet, which even if you have your issues with Fortnite, like it is much cooler to be walking around a universe with Batman and all these different characters and from every possible walk of life, than it is like Zuckerberg's boring avatar people with no legs, like, and going to these virtual Marshmallow concert, virtual Travis Scott show, movie trailer premieres, like live events in game, and like none of this was dampened by the fact that I wasn't doing it in VR. In fact, it was probably better that I wasn't doing it in VR. Just because I don't like that interface as much. But because Zuckerberg is so married to VR, like everything in his world currently looks horrifically ugly, and is, he's just at the very start of this, when all these other games and companies have like already kind of advanced beyond this. And it all just seems, I saw some commentary that his vision of this seems like it's for employers and companies and not for people. Like half the presentation, if not more, was just about like all the different ways you could sell digital products and NFTs and storefronts and throw virtual events and like have business meetings and stuff in the metaverse, and like very little time spent about talking, about why people would actually log into the first place and why they would enjoy doing so, and like what advantages it offers over competition in the space which exists already, and does nothing to address the challenges of VR itself, in which this vision is inextricably tied to, because he will not let go of that. I guess you can make the argument that this is like the very first steps, and in 10 years it's always 10 years. 10 years from now we'll all be in the metaverse and VR and be loving it and be addicted to it and whatever. But like I don't see it, and I also don't see it specifically under Mark Zuckerberg. I do not think, if anything that has been proven lately, it's that the traditional gaming sphere is not really going to be disrupted by anything significant. Like VR has had all the time in the world to creep up on consoles or PC gaming, and has done nothing. The only real kind of growing influence in gaming has been mobile. But VR and now blockchain games are like the new thing that are supposed to take over, has done nothing. And this is the most popular console generation ever. And we are about to have 5 more years of this. And you can bet there is going to be a PlayStation 5, and there's going to be an Xbox, whatever they call it with their stupid names, 6-7 years from now, and then we'll have another 6-7 year cycle. So that's 15 years more of consoles to begin with. And Sony has PSVR, and that is the most popular selling VR headset by default, but it's still just an add-on, and the adoption rate is it's very low. It's like 3%, 6%. It's something well below that. And the main point here also is that, to me, this just seems like someone saying like, okay guys, like the internet is going to become the next big thing. I'm calling my company, Net, and we're going to do all these things, and you're going to, be able to make all these purchases with our net. And it seems like you're planning for something that needs to grow organically. And the vision that you're offering is actively worse than the seeds that have already been planted. And it also does not help that you're a company with huge, massive problems at a global scale that has eroded the fundamentals of democracy all across the world. Why would anyone trust you with something this important? I don't have an answer for that, and I don't think Facebook has an answer for that. Sorry, Meta has an answer for that. And they can call themselves whatever they want, but as I said on Twitter yesterday, this name change does more to just damage the brand of the metaverse than it does to help the brand of Facebook. I think the metaverse is just dead as a term. It's a meme now. It was already becoming a meme. I get probably 10 or 12 or 20 metaverse-based pitches in my inbox every day from PR people saying that their metaverse startup or this metaverse, founder of whatever is doing this. And all of this is very stupid, and none of it is really remotely related to anything, why we were talking about the metaverse in the first place and what people wanted to see from it. Facebook just adopting the name and having the metaverse be associated with arguably one of the lamest, most harmful tech companies that exists right now is just going to kill the whole thing. Not to say that people won't keep innovating in this space, but you are going to say the metaverse, you will say that as a term and kind of be laughed out of the room now, unless you are one of these very self-serious tech bros that are super into crypto and NFTs and stuff. It's that category of thing now. And that Facebook has done a lot to accelerate that. If Facebook wants to spend tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars chasing this very terrible pipe dream version of their own private metaverse that does not have any remote appeal to anyone that I can tell, go for it. I don't care about Facebook's money. If anything, I would love them to lose money on this and then have their influence scale back a bit, and not have them be as this crushing force in society as they are now. And I feel if anything would ever sink Facebook, it would be self-inflicted wounds, say pivoting your entire company to invest in the future of communication or whatever, but doing it poorly and doing it slowly and not doing it, in ways that make a whole lot of sense or jive with kind of the rest of what's going on already. Zuckerberg says things he knows that the metaverse isn't going to be one company, and he's just a part of it. And like he even brought up Epic Games once, I think, in this thing. But of all the potential metaverses out there, Facebook's, despite devoting the most resources to it, looks the least promising. And I think it's video games that are pushing us towards the space. And believe me, like I think there are problems with all these versions of the metaverse. Roblox is pretty exploitative when it comes to its creators. I don't know if I trust Epic's Tim Sweeney with guiding the future of the metaverse, given his odd fixations on certain things. There are potential problems with this. And we also have to remember the core lesson of all of this metaverse fiction is that the metaverse is probably bad and it will probably be exploited by corporations and help accelerate the downfall of society. So there's that. But if we are moving in this direction, no matter what, into more immersive games, which we always have been, and more immersive social spaces, the direction Facebook is choosing with its sanitized, sandpapered, VR-based vision just looks so outrageously unappealing to me that I don't, I'd say I don't really even need to know where to start, but I just did this whole video. So clearly I have a lot to say about it, but this has been building for a long time because I've been following, metaverse stuff forever, and Mark Zuckerberg's obsession with it in particular for a while too, given, how much he's into it. And like, I get that he's excited about it. And like, I don't know if I would be doing something dramatically different than he is in his position, given his ridiculous resources, and yet everything he has shown me from this looks terrible, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. I think we are moving in this direction, whether we all like it or not. It just seems to be the future of gaming generally. I do not think VR will be like the interface for it for a very, very long time. I'm going to say more than 10 years because I do not think the tech is almost even remotely close to catching up to where it needs to be for full mainstream adoption. I don't think we're there. I don't think we're even close to there. And I think it will be pushed by traditional gaming a lot more than VR or all these other kind of attempts at exactly replicating the science fiction. So Facebook can try whatever they want. I guess I will dust off my quest to try their stupid legless communication things just to see if it's as lame as I think it is. But between this over-reliance on VR, the fact that this is Facebook doing all this and Zuckerberg's vision of it, and the fact of like what we've seen, in which none of it is remotely appealing to me, or I think a lot of people, I have zero faith in this specific version of it. And I will continue to attend my virtual Fortnite concerts dressed up as superheroes, which feels a lot more like the metaverse to me. Anyway, this is going to be a long discussion that will take, years, if not decades, to unfold. So I may chime in with a metaverse video every so often here, even if, it's not related to any specific game or anything, just to have somewhere to talk about it, because if I transcribed all that probably would have been like a 20,000 word article. So anyway, thanks for bearing with me. If you made it all the way through this, I applaud you. But thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.